last of the morning, and I will try to keep it quick. It is another point of view of the same topics we are addressing the whole morning. About the existing buildings, and in this case, residential existing buildings, historic and listed, and what are the challenges, compromises, and opportunities. We are going to talk about the context, the project goals and time goals, challenges, unforeseen and restoration, and compromises and opportunities and lessons learned. There is, let's say, a grade of entropy that we need from time to time to apply to our academia teaching. And that grade of entropy, I think, is constituted by the real life, what happens in the real life, because we cannot teach our students the same thing we taught them 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. We have to be very well anchored with our feet to the ground and understand what is happening in our environment, in our context, professionally speaking. In Italy, there is a really high percentage of existing buildings stock of the overall buildings that are in the country. There are a few of the reasons why it happened. One of these reasons, of course, is fortune, because during the First or the Second World War, not many buildings were destroyed, so they just remained there. And some other reasons for it were, of course, the way they were constructed and the way the cities were constructed. So one of the, professionally speaking, challenges we need to tackle is the renovation project of these buildings. And most of these buildings, leaving aside the peripheries that were built in the 60s and the 70s with the economic boom in Italy, but most of these buildings are listed in one or another level. Most of them has first level of restraint, which is the external restraint, but a lot of them have also internal restraints, which means that you cannot even change the color of the paint on the walls, even if it's not fresco painted or anything, it's just painted, but you cannot change even that. So in this case, doing the renovation of these buildings becomes a very complicated thing to do, because you have to put together a lot of things. In geography and demography, the most of the, let's say, geographically speaking, Italy is very long, but it is mostly in a very good Mediterranean climate. And most of these buildings are or inside the historic centers of the city, or are in the countryside, the first countryside, a very, very nice context from the naturalistic point of view. The demography of people who are doing this kind of renovation is very interesting, actually, because they are eventually targeted by very rich people, because otherwise you cannot afford in any way to do these kind of renovations. So there is a big market of people trying to sell at not that high prices, very interesting real estate properties with lots of land and heritage properties, and very few buyers, because, you know, you buy it for one price and then you have to spend double the price that you bought it for just to do the renovation and to make it livable. And of course, there is the legislation frame that doesn't help at all. I have to say that in this case, Italy is a bit particular, because you make a law to find an exception for the law. So in 2013, only in 2013, the legislation said that also listed buildings needed to do the energy efficiency and to have the certificate. But then there is this gray area from another law from 2005 that if you demonstrate that there is no way to do it, you're not obliged to do anything. So you can do whatever you want on these kind of buildings from the legislation point of view. As far as there is someone that can sign that there was nothing else that you could do in this case. And also, another of the points in the context is how to pass from having a client to having an owner of the building, because which is a very interesting passage and not always that soft passage, because I'm not talking about the clients that are corporates or whatever. I'm talking about the clients that are private persons that fell in love with, I don't know, Tuscany countryside, and that decide to invest and to buy a house. And once they buy a house, because while they're in the process of buying it, everybody is suggesting them and telling them and advising them that everything they can do whatever they want. And once they buy the house, the property, they cannot do anything, and they become the owner of the house, and when they are owners of the house, they are a lot of other problems they need to face. And eventually, budget and cost estimate, which is something that at least where I teach is completely not an issue, but in the real life is the most important thing we need to do and to understand. So, all of these premises, all of this context to say that I'm going to talk today about 3 projects that I'm working on that are 3 current projects, 2 of them in Tuscany, 1 in the center of Florence and 1 in the countryside, 20 kilometers from Florence, and 1 in Genova, in Liguria. All 3 of these projects are complete residential luxury renovations. They are single-family villas, which means we have something like 500 square meters per person. There are primary residences, and the one in Genova is actually a vacation home, so it's a second home. And in all the 3 cases, we have both buildings and gardens listed, and one of the cases we have only the exterior part of the building listed, and the other 2 cases we have also the interiors of the building listed. And we are talking about, just to have a frame, the budget range going from 32 to 70 100 per square meters only for the renovation. And these are, you know, I'm not allowed to show you the pictures of the villas, but I can show you the pictures of the surrounding of the villas. The first one is one in Liguria near Genoa. It's called Villa Le Magnolie. The garden of the villa contains 4 magnolias, which are the oldest magnolias in Europe from 1600. And this is, you know, the view you have from the villa, from this. If you step here, you can see this. It's the whole property arriving to the side. And it is around 1,600 square meters. It is in different levels because the ground is very sloped, so it is around 6 stories because some of them are semi-underground, and then there is a small tower rising above. And we are very near to the sea, so we have all of the problems that are related to being very, very near to the sea with the air and humidity and the wind and everything. The other 2 properties are, as you can see, in very near Florence and one a little bit outside. And this one over there is a bit smaller. It's around 800 square meters, and this one is a very big property, and the main villa is 2,000 square meters, and yet no space for systems. So, what are the project goals? What we start with, and what is something that clients always ask us to do, to have high performance, to have those buildings easy to manage, to have environments and buildings with independent management. Because as I said, these are very large buildings and these are one-family buildings, so it's not going to be used during 365 days a year in the same way. Sometimes they're going to have guests, and we're going to have 20 people occupying the house. Sometimes they're going to be just 3 of them. Sometimes, mostly during July and August, nobody wants to be in Florence, so they are not going to be inside those houses. So they need to have everything managed independently. One of the most interesting things that I've noticed that 15 years when I, 18 years ago, started working, was about acoustical well-being. 18 years ago, nobody talked about that. The legislation in Italy, when you're talking about residential houses, doesn't have any kind of requirements on certification or any kind of measurement on acoustic. It's still, in the past 3 or 4 years, we always have an acoustic engineer on the team because the systems are getting louder and the clients are getting sophisticated, more sophisticated in the hearing, so we need to have one of the first things that we are asked for is the acoustical well-being, is not to hear. Also not to see, because they don't want to see anything. They are buying these really beautiful buildings, beautiful walls, and everything, but they want them to be operated inside and to have the well-being of 5-star plus hotels, but they don't want to see anything. And eventually, the cost effectiveness. Of course, there's this kind of investment. If you're buying a house for your family and you invest this amount of money in the restoration of this property, which is a very important property, you don't do this operation in order to resell it in 5 years and to have a profit. But nevertheless, we're talking about people that are used to have a very money-oriented minds, otherwise they would not be able to buy this kind of properties. So they want to understand with the investment they put inside these buildings, what could be a cost effectiveness eventually, one day, 10 years, 20 years from the moment they buy it. So there is still, even if the law and legislation does not require anything, and even if, of course, any kind of owner wants to save money, there are still some measurement and controls that we are able to implement. And there are still some kind of automation that became a standard, even if not that easy. It is a KNX standard that we managed to implement in any restoration that we're doing, even if sometimes it is just to buy the equipment that has the possibility to be then put in the grid, and sometimes we really have scenarios and automatic building controlled and everything. But it became very important to have these kind of things because the systems inside these properties are very complex, not because there is not only electrical, plumbing, and mechanical, there are also media and special systems and security and anti-intrusion and Starlink and all of this all put together. So having a standard and making make it comprehensible for our clients to understand the importance, or also what the person before me was saying, of open sources and being able to access it, it's very, very important. So, what we are asked, heating and cooling contemporarily, and I put it contemporarily under the quotes because we have, I had recently in one of these projects the owner's wife telling me, but I want to, if I'm hot in my bathroom, I want to turn the air conditioner on, and then if I'm cold in my bedroom, passing from the bathroom to the bedroom, I want to put my heating on. They want it, let's say again, silent, invisible, and to sectorize, because it is the requirement of living in such big residential space. So what do we need to do? We have to generate space, because, as I said, even if when we work with 2,000 square meters properties, it seems like there is no space where to put systems, where to put anything that is related to systems. So we need to find crevices and to find space, to generate space where to put so. We need to explain the investment logic of why do we need all of these professionals working on the team. And we need to give answers to very simple questions, but that have very complex answers on how to manage all of this once you enter and live in this kind of buildings. And here I just wanted to two small pies about adding the decarbonization to this process, the cost of the division of the costs of 4 principal parts of our restoration, which is architectural part, structural part, HVAC, and electric, from 2018 to 2024, parametrically how it changed. So this is one of the plans of one of the villas. So for you to see also that we have big walls, very passive things, you know. But we don't have any kind of, if you see in this plan, but in most of the plans, I did not show, I did not put all of the plans, we don't have space for anything. Also with all of these things put one above the other and trying to keep all of these ambience good. For example, this is a room, a central room of one of the villas, which is 9 meters per 11 meters, so around 108 square meters, and it is high 12 meters. And we have leaded glass on that, on the external windows, single leaded glass that we cannot change because the windows are listed. And we need to have, to obtain a thermal well-being inside this, because it is a living room. So what can we do? We can do a lot of construction site art. Sometimes not so much, because we cannot, sometimes we can, a lot, even with doing some small structural works in order to put ducts. Sometimes we need to go like very precise, which means of course that the cost of doing this is much higher than the cost of doing this, because the person that are doing this are completely different. We find space, we find crevices, we open the walls, we open ceilings, we dig, we ruin these buildings completely. We completely, to be able to find space where to put all of things that needs to be put, we take buildings that are 300, 400, 500 years old, and we put holes in them. So another owner in 20 or 50 years will not know what to do, because we take them and they are whole. So we dig, sometimes we go in the gray area of the urban legislation and we put something like, not a real slab because we cannot add slab, we cannot add surface, but we put something like more or less of a good slab so we can walk on it and put all of the systems needed above. You can see here. Because we can always argue that this is not a real slab. Then you just put plasterboard under it, so it's a false ceiling. So yes, what are the challenges? Work on the envelope. Yes, roofing, but we need to do the traditional techniques. So we cannot do a real insulation. We do the insulation of the roofing, of course. We redo all of the roofing, but then we need to use traditional techniques. So we improve to a point. Yes, external fixtures. You can change windows, but then we have listed fixtures, blown leaded glass. We add to every small leaded glass one wizard glass, but still we cannot really make it efficient significantly. Horizontal insulation. We can add horizontal insulation, but then we cannot change the slab height, the inner distance to windows, because if you add the horizontal insulation, just when you add the system, normal system, you go higher. And then you have the problem that the height of the window is not by standard anymore, so you cannot do that. Then, vertical insulation, but we have listed facades, we have fresco paintings in rooms, so it is not possible to do so. Add technical rooms, but then we have lack of space, ventilation, noise standards, rationalization, yes, but we have to do passages in walls that are in opus incerto, which means that are not brick walls, they are made of stones, of pieces of stones, so it is not that easy to do the rationalization of where to do all of the passages of the systems inside. Because you can see that if we could do in some rooms the construction site art, there are some rooms that we cannot. They are all like this. The best thing we can do is this. Take out the outer part of the pavement, put all of the system there, put the pavement on, and then call the guys to repaint everything above. Yes, and I was talking about that room before. You can see the small leaded glass on the big living room, and then the walls are like this, or the pavements are like this. So not easy to... So what are the compromises that eventually, starting from very high hopes, we end? They're mostly on the financial side of the project. Restoration of pictorial works, because somewhere we need to pass, something we need to do. So we need to do the restoration of pictorial works. Then we have to do, most of the time, the manual dismantling of flooring frames, cataloging and reassembling, which is a very interesting work to do. Then structural works, as I said, we add a lot of structure inside those 4 houses. Frames, steel frames, not only for new passages, new doors or whatever, but for the systems. More furnishing, joinery. In order to hide everything, or most of it, we need to add more joinery, more woodwork in terms of budget, which is very harmful for the budget. Then we need to do other permits, other variants to the permits, because in most of the restoration you start and then you find lots of problems. So when you do all of the permits at the beginning, you have to do a variant almost every month and a half, which is a cost that the owner has to sustain, another cost. And the most important thing, the prolongation of construction times, reiteration of design phase, which is something that, if we could have a lot of time and find the right solutions, it would be the best, but most of the times we have very, very tight timing and schedules, so we need to just contain the prolongation of construction times. But the compromises are also on the body of the building and its resilience and future. Doubling the systems, co-presence of different HVAC systems in a single building, because we need to have underfloor heating where we can have underfloor heating, radiators, we need to have them where we can have radiators, fan coils, doubling the systems, so doubling the passages and having bigger technical rooms and so on and so forth. Increase of quantity of components to support, complex programming and managing, need of frequent professional technical assistance, energy consumption, and one of the most important things, I hope that it will be changed quite soon, that in most of the cases solar is not an option at all because of the heritage building, so we cannot use solar energy in most of the cases. So, doing everything while keeping an eye on client's interest, design's interest, because eventually the design of the building cannot be made of small solutions for small problems. Building's interest, because we cannot leave a disastrous building for the future. Administrative and urban planning, keep an eye on all of the standards and legislation and whatever on that part, and the sustainability eventually of the whole operation. I'm going to run through this very, I brought one example of the doubling of systems in the small one, the 800 square meters house, but it doesn't matter because I think you understand this much better than me, but a lot of passages, a lot of things to implement. A photo of a technical room with another hall we needed to make. So, what are the opportunities? What can we do? On my experience, we are at a stage where the design team works quite well together, the architect and engineer and the system engineers and everything. But still, we do not involve early enough interior designers, whilst they are the ones that needs to hide all of those components. Holistic and integrated approach between Maisonnes and neophilia. And this is something I was really thinking about also this morning. Our architects professional community is very well divided between those who said that in the older days everything functioned better, and those who said that everything that is new is better. So there is no kind of, let's say, merging between these two cultural ways of living architecture and living our profession, because the architects that can have access to this kind of project most of the times are in their mature part of their professional career and are very, very comfortable with traditional techniques, traditional way of doing the project, drawing in 2D and having a young guy that does the 3D. And it is not easy to explain and to invest in twin buildings, for example, building twins. On the other hand, there is this part of our professional community that is so much in love with the future and so much, that everything that is new technologically, what comes to the market, it's better than anything. So you need to find a dynamic balance between those two. One of the other opportunities we need to think about is early budgeting and timing when you do this budgeting and timing, to put already all of these things that can happen and that happen punctually during the process. Owners' needs and requirements, and how to present owners' needs and requirements to the owners, because most of the times you need to constitute, they don't know what are their needs and requirements. Tailor-made solutions. Every project that I've been working on in past 18 years was different than the previous one, even if all of them were under this umbrella of historic renovations. And there is no, it is not easy to apply the same solution you applied in one to another. You have to think that these buildings are not typological buildings, and the solutions cannot be typological solutions. Importance of the team of professionals. It's not only know how, it's also know who you need to put inside your team and to coordinate the team in order to deliver a building consciously. And then, of course, the eternal or perpetual work in progress, because we cannot say, okay, this works, I will do this. Every time you need to understand that you need to put another step, another step, another step, and to try to move and do better next time. So what is the future? As a previous person said, I don't know what is our future. We are looking at the sky, but the sky is not looking at us.
Thank you.